Good evening. I'm Simone Sanders Townsend, and we begin this hour with Donald Trump and his administration's brazen defiance of the court system, which frankly was on full display this afternoon in a hearing on what, if anything, the administration is doing to follow the court's orders to facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland father who was mistakenly deported to a maximum security prison in El Salvador last month to the U.S. Now, the answer, at least so far, appears to be nothing. The judge in the case admonished Justice Department lawyer Drew Ensign today, saying the government had shown her nothing to date. The word facilitate is what the Justice Department lawyers appear to be focused on, telling the judge that they have just different interpretations of what it means. Well, the judge wasn't having any of that. She also did not seem particularly moved by comments made yesterday by Trump and El Salvadorian President Bukele in the Oval Office, describing their statements as two very misguided ships passing in the night. The judge is now ordering the administration to provide evidence on any steps it has taken to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return and fast, telling that Department of Justice lawyer to cancel any vacations or planned appointments for the next couple of weeks. But every day that passes waiting for those answers, a man who has been afforded no due process sits in what is essentially a gulag in El Salvador with no contact with his family. Today, Abrego Garcia's wife gave emotional remarks to reporters outside the courthouse pleading for his return.
I will not stop fighting until I see my husband alive. Kilmar, if you can hear me, stay strong. My heart aches for my husband, who should have been here leading our Easter prayers. Instead, I find myself pleading with the Trump administration and the Bukele administration to stop playing political games with the life of Kilmar. Our family is torn apart during this scary time, and our children miss their dad so much.
Joining me now is MSNBC legal analyst and former federal prosecutor Paul Butler and Charlie Dent, former Republican congressman from Pennsylvania. That was very emotional. Oh, my gosh. Why can't they just bring them back, Charlie? What is going on?
Well, look, it's become more complicated than it needs to be because this gentleman is now down in El Salvador. The court has ordered that he be returned. We just saw that the president of El Salvador yesterday said he wasn't going to return him. So I'm not sure, and this is where our legal expert might have some guidance, I'm not sure how we will compel a foreign head of state to release one of his own citizens back to the United States. I agree, this man was denied due process. He should not have been deported in the first place. But we're in a weird spot here.
I mean, it's just so, Paul Butler, the DHS secretary was literally in this very prison not a couple weeks ago. And it's not lost on me that, the president of the United States is saying that he can, make China and every world power, large or small, bend to his will when it comes to the economy. But he can't tell the El Salvadoran dictator to bring somebody back. That being said, the Atlantic today writes that the constitutional crisis is here. This is what Adam Serra wrote. This is a quote from there. The Trump administration is defying a Supreme Court order to retrieve a man it marooned in a gulag abroad while pretending to comply with it. What could it do to him? It could do to anyone. More significantly, if the Trump administration can defy court orders with impunity and Congress is unwilling to act, there is no reason for it to respect the constitutional rights of American citizens either. The Roberts Court will now have to decide whether to side with the Constitution or with a lawless president asserting the power to disappear people at will. This is not a power that any person, much less an American president, is meant to have. I mean, I keep asking everyone, are we in a constitutional crisis?
We are in a constitutional crisis.
Why?
Because the Supreme Court is being openly defied by the President of the United States. What does it take to bring this man home? What it takes is for the President to tell the president of El Salvador to bring him home. We all saw that love fest yesterday in the Oval Office between those two men. If Trump asked, it would happen, but instead they're pretending. So the Homeland Security Secretary, the Attorney General of the United States says, well, all the Supreme Court said is that we have to do what we can here. So she says, if he can somehow make his way to the airport, then we'll spring for the flight home. That's defiance. That's not what the Supreme Court says. They know that. And when they send lawyers to make these ridiculous arguments that don't pass a laugh test, that's not saying to the Supreme Court, hey, we're not going to do what you want in those words, but it's open defiance.
You know, I had Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland on last night, and obviously Senator from Maryland, he said that if he could not get a meeting with President Bukele, he was going to go to El Salvador. He didn't get his meeting. He says he's going to El Salvador on Wednesday he wants access to the prison. He wants to check on Kilmar Abrego Garcia's condition. There have now since been a number of Democrats who have said, we want to join him. I talked to a lot of White House reporters today who said, it's so crazy. Trump is in the toilet on the economy, but he's up on immigration, but Democrats want to take an exodus to El Salvador. But this is what was happening to Chuck Grassley in a town hall in Iowa just this afternoon. Take a listen.
Are you going to bring that guy back from El Salvador? Yeah. Why not?
Well, because that's not a power of Congress.
The Supreme Court said to bring him back.
Yeah, but
What can they do?
He's defined the Constitution. Committee.
Trump don't care.
If I get an order to pay a ticket for $1,200 and I just say no, does that stand up? Because he's got an order from the Supreme Court and he's just said no.
Yeah. He just said screw it.
the president of that country is not subject to our U.S. Supreme Court.
If Trump wanted to bring him